日本の若い世代の人たちの間で最も愛読されている外国文学の一つに大地という小説があります。ボイス・オブ・ザ・ワールドは今回はその大地を書いたアメリカの世界的作家パール・バック女史の声をお送りします。パール・バック女史は70歳に近い今日まで約40年間というものを中国で暮らし、中国の農民の生活を描いた大地はその深い体験から生まれたものです。ヒューマニズムが脈々と波打っている彼女の作品に対してはノーベル賞が贈られています。はじめに田園を愛するパール・バック女史にちなんでアメリカ民謡「懐かしのバージニア」をお聴きください。次にお送りするインタビューは映画「大津波」の制作のために日本を訪れたパール・バック女史が2人の訪問者に対して最近の日本の印象を語ったものの一部です。
Well, Miss Buck, you haven't been in Japan very long, and possibly this is unfair, but I wonder if you could start us out by telling us some of your quick impressions of our country.
Well, Mr. Sheldon, it really isn't very fair. I've only been here about 24 hours. They've been very full hours, I must say. But, of course, I didn't know Tokyo very well. I've lived in Japan, but mostly in the island of Kyushu. And, of course, I know that Tokyo's very different since the war. Many of these buildings, I suppose, have been put up quite recently. But it's the people that interest me most. And I do notice a difference. In the first place, there's so many that speak good English. They didn't used to. Mm-hmm. The women have an entirely different look, I must say. They look up and coming, much more than they did. Though I think the Japanese woman was always underrated in her influence. She had a lot of influence.
Yes, we think so,
yes.
too. In her quiet way.
That's right. Sometimes not so quiet in the home. Yes. But she was taught good manners for outside.
What were the impressions of Japan that you had carried with you from your previous stay here?
Well, it was more of perhaps a rural impression, because I always loved the country and the country people. And I think the longest that I ever lived here was a year on the island of Kyushu. And I took a little Japanese house on the mountains behind Nagasaki and knew people who lived around me. And, of course, I knew Japanese in China, too, of the college and educated group. A good deal of rather formal behavior, certainly if you didn't know them very well. Not too easy to know, and not too easy to communicate with.
Well, you certainly were able, Miss Buck, to communicate with the country people of China, apparently, or at least understand them. Did you find them far different from the country people of Japan in that day?
The Chinese and Japanese are very different people. The Chinese, certainly in my childhood, were very easygoing, and the disciplines were very real, but they were not as strict as the old Japanese disciplines. And I feel here that suddenly the atmosphere is different, even in the few hours that I've been here.
Well, by your writing, Miss Buck, you certainly have made yourself, well, almost the expert on China. And I'd be interested to hear some of your comparisons. Now, for instance, a little while ago you said you thought Japanese and Chinese were very different. I think perhaps some of us sense in the way that they are. And certainly Orientals and Occidentals are in many ways different. Now, Miss Buck, in our shrinking world today, our rapidly shrinking world, pardon the cliche, there's no other way to say it, it's terribly, terribly important that we all get along in spite of differences. And it's terribly, terribly important that we all understand each other. And I think perhaps that some of those differences disappear. Yet when those differences do disappear, well, we get the loss of charm and the loss of culture and the loss of roots. What would you say about that, about the Orient today and its relationship to the Occident?
Well, I don't think that just being Oriental or Occidental is what makes the difference. I think geography and history make the difference. For example, the continental peoples have a good deal in common. The Chinese and ourselves, for example, are amazingly alike in many ways, and the Americans and Chinese. And we have a good deal of the same geography. And island peoples, I think, are very much alike. The English and the Japanese are, in many ways, astonishingly alike. So that geography does have an effect on peoples. And then history, of course.